That evening in the dusty roadside diner, something unusual happened that nobody expected. A tired woman quietly stood from her chair, hoping nobody would notice her leaving. But across the room, a rancher slowly lowered his fork and watched carefully. Because beside that woman stood a little girl staring silently at his plate. The girl's wide eyes followed every bite as if food were treasure. Friends, that moment froze the entire room in a strange, uneasy silence. The rancher felt something heavy in his chest he could not explain. It wasn't anger, and it certainly wasn't annoyance toward the child. It was the painful recognition of hunger that he knew too well. And what he did next left everyone in that diner completely stunned. The woman kept her head down while reaching for the worn diner door. Her boots moved slowly, almost like she hoped the world would ignore her. She whispered something softly to the girl while gently holding her hand. The little girl nodded but looked back one more time toward the rancher's plate. Her eyes carried that quiet question children ask when they are too polite. The rancher set his fork down carefully and wiped his hands slowly. Something about that child's silent stare felt impossible for him to ignore. Years ago he had worn the same empty look himself. Growing up poor on a failing ranch had carved that memory deeply inside him. And suddenly the past felt very close again in that small diner. The rancher stood from his chair just as the woman pushed open the door. Cold evening wind rushed inside carrying dust from the empty western road. "Wait a moment," he called gently without sounding demanding or rude. The woman froze instantly as if she had done something terribly wrong. She slowly turned, clearly embarrassed that someone had noticed their quiet exit. "I'm sorry, sir, we didn't mean to bother anyone," she said softly. Her voice carried the tired weight of someone fighting too many battles. The rancher glanced briefly toward the little girl standing beside her silently. Those same curious eyes were still fixed on the food remaining at his table. And that sight alone made his decision completely clear. "Please don't apologize," the rancher replied while walking calmly toward their table. "You both look like you could use a proper meal tonight." The woman shook her head quickly, pride battling against obvious desperation. "We're fine, sir, really, we just needed to rest a moment." But her voice trembled slightly, revealing the truth she hoped nobody noticed. The little girl quietly squeezed her mother's hand, saying absolutely nothing. Children sometimes understand more than adults realize during difficult moments. The rancher smiled kindly, remembering the pride his own mother once carried. "I already ordered too much food," he added casually with a friendly shrug. "And I'd hate to see it go completely to waste tonight." The woman hesitated near the door while the wind rattled its old frame. Her eyes moved between the rancher, the little girl, and the quiet diner room. Every customer watched silently, pretending not to notice the unfolding moment. The rancher gently pulled out a chair near his table and stepped aside. "You're welcome to sit, no pressure, just neighbors sharing supper tonight." The little girl looked hopefully toward her mother without speaking a single word. After a long breath, the woman slowly nodded and walked back inside. They both sat carefully like guests unsure if they truly belonged there. The rancher returned to his seat and pushed the warm plate closer. "Go ahead, young lady, supper tastes better when shared," he said kindly. The girl looked at her mother once again before touching the fork carefully. Her small hands moved slowly as if afraid someone might suddenly stop her. Then she took the first bite and her face quietly lit with relief. The rancher pretended not to watch, giving them the dignity they deserved. The woman thanked him softly, clearly holding back tears she refused to show. "Times have been difficult lately," she explained with quiet honesty. "Our car broke down miles from town and we've been walking since yesterday." The rancher nodded slowly, understanding the harsh reality of long western roads. Many travelers learned quickly that help sometimes appeared when hope nearly vanished. And tonight, that help had simply been one shared plate of food. They ate slowly, talking between bites as the diner slowly returned to normal noise. The little girl introduced herself politely, her voice full of shy gratitude. The rancher laughed warmly, telling stories about growing up on a dusty ranch nearby. Soon the tension disappeared, replaced by the simple comfort of friendly conversation. Even the diner cook leaned from the kitchen window watching quietly with respect. Moments like that reminded people what community truly meant in the Old West. Helping strangers had once been a rule, not a rare kindness. The rancher believed that rule should never disappear from the world. And tonight felt like a small reminder that good people still existed everywhere, even when life pushed them dangerously close to losing hope. After the plates were nearly empty, the rancher asked about their destination. The woman explained they were trying to reach a town 2 counties away. A distant cousin had promised work cleaning cabins near the river there. But without transportation the journey felt nearly impossible for them both. The rancher leaned back thoughtfully while glancing toward the dark highway outside. He owned an old truck that still ran surprisingly well despite its age. Sometimes fate placed people together for reasons nobody understood immediately. And perhaps tonight was one of those quiet moments of purpose. He finished his coffee and made a simple offer without dramatic speeches. "If you trust me, I can give you both a ride tomorrow morning." The woman looked stunned by the unexpected generosity offered by a stranger. Life had taught her to be careful, especially while traveling alone with a child. But something about the rancher's calm honesty felt completely genuine and safe. The little girl smiled brightly, clearly imagining a long ride instead of walking. After thinking quietly for a moment, the woman slowly accepted his offer. "Thank you, sir, we truly didn't expect kindness tonight," she admitted honestly. The rancher simply tipped his hat like it was no big deal. Sometimes the smallest help created the biggest changes in someone's life. And tonight that truth sat quietly between 3 strangers sharing supper. A single plate had turned into something far more meaningful than food. The next morning arrived with golden sunlight spreading across the quiet western highway. The rancher's old truck waited outside the diner exactly where he promised. The little girl climbed inside excitedly, holding a small paper bag breakfast. The diner cook had packed extra sandwiches after hearing their story overnight. The woman thanked everyone again, overwhelmed by kindness she never expected. The rancher started the engine with a rumbling sound echoing across the road. Dust lifted behind the truck as they began their long journey eastward. The girl laughed happily while watching open fields rush past the windows. And for the first time in days, hope felt stronger than exhaustion. Sometimes kindness truly arrives exactly when people need it most. During the long drive, they talked about dreams, mistakes, and second chances. The rancher explained how neighbors once saved his family during hard seasons. Without their help, his ranch would have disappeared years ago completely. That memory guided the way he treated strangers even today. The woman listened carefully, understanding how quickly life could change direction. Her daughter fell asleep peacefully in the back seat halfway through the ride. The rancher smiled quietly seeing the child finally resting without worry. Moments like that reminded him why simple kindness always mattered. Not every good deed needed recognition, praise, or attention afterward. Sometimes helping quietly was reward enough for a good heart. By afternoon they reached the small riverside town where cabins stood among tall trees. The woman's cousin greeted them warmly, surprised they actually made the journey. Work was ready, and a small cabin waited nearby for them both. The rancher helped unload their small bags before preparing to leave again. The little girl hugged him tightly without hesitation or shyness. "Thank you for supper yesterday," she said with pure childhood sincerity. The rancher laughed gently, promising to visit again someday during travels. Then he climbed back into his dusty truck and tipped his hat once more. The engine started, and soon he disappeared down the quiet country road. But the kindness he showed would never be forgotten by that family. Back at the diner weeks later, the cook asked if the rancher heard news. The woman had started work successfully and her daughter began attending school nearby. They were safe, fed, and finally building a stable life again. The rancher simply nodded quietly while finishing his usual evening supper. Sometimes stories never appear in newspapers or town gossip columns. But they remain powerful reminders that compassion still shapes the world. All it took was noticing a hungry child staring at someone's plate, and choosing kindness instead of ignoring the silent request in her eyes. That small decision changed more lives than anyone expected that night. And it all started with one quiet moment inside a dusty diner. So friends, next time you see someone struggling quietly nearby, remember this story. Kindness doesn't always require wealth, power, or grand heroic gestures. Sometimes it begins with noticing the small things other people overlook. A hungry child, a tired traveler, or a stranger needing simple help. If this story touched your heart even a little today, let me know. Share your thoughts below about moments when kindness changed someone's life. And if you enjoy stories like this from the Wild West frontier, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next story. Hit the like button if you believe kindness still matters in this world. And share this story with someone who might need a reminder today.